Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to crumble!
I'm Joshua Kemble, and welcome to Joshua Kemble's Livestream. I've been a freelance illustrator and graphic designer for over 20 years. I was an art director for 9 years. And when I'm not art directing and working on illustrations and graphic designs, I'm working on comic books and graphic novels, and that's usually what I do during my streams. And while conversations can go all over the place on this stream, from spicy and entertaining to goofy and silly, one thing stays consistent throughout every stream. I'll always be working on art. So pull up a chair, get your art supplies out, and get ready for an entertaining show that'll keep you company while you work on your own personal art projects. This is Joshua Kemble's Art Stream. All right, welcome to my live stream. This is, I think, episode 380. I've done 380 of these, which is crazy. If you watched like one of my live streams a day for a year, you'd have like a couple left at the end, which is kind of amazing. Anyhow, so I've been working on page 120 of Not Death But Love, The Strange Supernatural Story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And I was listening to the Dodger game, which is why I've got my Dodger hat on. And we won the third game of the World Series, which is cool. So one more to go. Other than that, I've just been working on coloring. I did the shading for page 120. I finished that up, and I've been working on coloring it. I was going to live stream yesterday evening, and then we had a whole snafu where a whole bunch of our fish died, and it was really depressing. So I didn't think it would be appropriate to live stream at that time, but we were a little bummed about it because we've grown to like said fish. Anyhow, so let's get into art. What I'm going to do today is I'm planning on basically, let me show you the progress I have so far on the page. So I shaded it, right? I finished the shading. This is Robert has broken up this, the main character has broken up a conflict between these two gentlemen who are cattle drivers. They basically drive the oxen that are carrying the cart for the Brownings. The Brownings and Sophie and her husband, the Eckleys, and their kids are basically going to Rome mostly for Elizabeth's health, right? Because Elizabeth always goes for Rome around this time because this is back in the day when they just thought, well, fresh air and a new environment will help with sicknesses, which could have some truth to it, but I think it was very Victorian era, kind of like, hey, this person's stomach is upset. Let's give them loads of laudanum kind of mentality. But anyhow, so they've headed up to Rome. These two drivers kind of end up in a conflict. One pulls out a knife. It's a tense situation. Robert breaks it up. And now we're seeing kind of the aftermath of this. So Wilson is really shook up. Sophie's in the background kind of holding her kid. And then Robert is kind of breathing deeply after breaking this up. And now is kind of refocusing on Elizabeth, who is furious that Robert put himself in harm's way between two knife-wielding men. And that's kind of where we're at. So what I'm going to do is try to color the last of these pages, and then I'll color hold the sky, and then we'll call it for the stream. So it's going to be a very short stream today. But I see two things I want to fix real quick. So the magenta, by the way, when I'm working on colors and flat coloring, I usually, if I have to deselect for a second, I will pick the color magenta as the flat color to fill. Another quick tip, too, when you're flat coloring digitally is, I have these kind of pencil lines underneath. So it's not quite the same method of coloring that I would use if I were doing traditional inks. But either way, there's one thing you definitely want to make sure of, and that's that when you're making your selections, especially if you're using Adobe, you want to make sure that anti-aliasing is off. Anti-aliasing is where the computer will blur the edge of lines so that the pixels don't look as harsh. The problem with that is it makes non-crisp edges when it goes to print. So I always want to make sure my lines are actually aliasing on my flats so that if I look at my flat colors without the line and I zoom in, it's got this nice little step ladder between the two colors. And what that means is when that ink lays down at the printer, it's going to look like a sharp, beautiful division. Pepsi Cola said, Merry Spooky Eve. Hope you and your family are doing good. Yeah, I'm excited about Halloween. Should be fun. We were all set to do a Halloween thing on Saturday. And then my son got a sore throat. And so we had to cancel our little Halloween shindig. But other than that, it looks like he'll probably be feeling better by Halloween, which is exciting because that means we can rock our costumes. Pepsi said, art looks fantastic. Love the behind the scenes info. Thanks. No problem. I love doing these streams, and I'm 120 pages into this thing, which means I have about 100 left to go. And it just dawned on me the other day, like a couple days ago, that I hadn't live streamed in forever. And so part of why I won't do it, why in the past I would be like, nah, it's a little late to live stream, or, well, I'm only really going to be able to live stream for about an hour. That's why I would usually kind of start pushing off the process of live streaming. But it dawned on me the other day that, oh, that's probably an MLB notification of the Dodgers rocking. I picked a really good time to get back into baseball, get interested into sports. As somebody who lives in LA County, so of course, if I am going to pick a baseball team, I'm going to pick the Dodgers anytime. And boy, did I pick a good time to get back into it, because this is probably the best that team has ever been. And they possibly are like the best baseball team in the world right now. And so that's been pretty exciting. I shouldn't talk baseball. But anyhow, my point is, it just dawned on me like, oh, I can actually just stream while I color a couple panels. I don't have to stream the whole page, the whole coloring of the page. And I can still kind of touch base and hang out with you guys. So that's kind of what I did. I decided, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go live. I'll live stream for a couple hours or an hour or so. And then after that, Pepsi said, woo, finally a baseball comeback story. Former LA or so, I feel ya. Yeah, it's been a really exciting. That's just been great baseball. If you've been watching the World Series, it's just kind of incredible because the Yankees have been incredible as a foe to defeat. They have not gone down easy. They're an incredible team. And the games have all been really close. Even tonight's, it almost was a shutout. And then they had some people on base and they scored, twice. They had people on base. They had a potential to catch up. With only one out to go, they almost tied it up. And that's kind of how it's ended every time. The first one went into the 10th. It's been really interesting and fun. And I think that's where it is fun, where it's an actual contest and really tense. So anyhow, that's been fun. Pepsi said, exciting times. It is exciting times. So I'm finishing up this panel. And then I've got a lot of stuff I have to do tonight afterwards. Once I'm done with this page, I got to get on my workout routine. That's something I've been really consistent with. I think a lot of a lot of people my age kind of have to take that on, where, health becomes a huge priority. As you get a little older, you start getting aches and pains and stuff like that. So that's something I'm going to have to do tonight. And then after that, I have to do a lesson plan. And I'm actually excited about the lesson plan because the part of a project we're working on right now is going over ideation, making idea maps. And we're going to be going over probably tomorrow the process of doing roughs. And I feel like those things are actually like superpowers that illustrators and graphic designers weld with a mighty hand. And I think a lot of artists may not be aware of those processes. And great painters and artists, fine artists, do that as well. But a lot of young artists, when they don't realize when they're looking at a painting that it's the process of iteration and, roughs and rough revisions and changing up different possibilities for the image before you even invest the time in the final, is like a superpower behind it. So it's kind of like the it is like a superpower for artists. It makes you be able to make work that looks really incredible. And most people, your average Joe who's not interested in art, probably won't realize, like, it's kind of like behind the Disney movie is the story department. And a lot of people don't realize that, like, who aren't really into art. But people who have an interest in it are going to know a little bit of what's under the hood that drives these incredible things. So I'm excited about making a part of a lesson plan that has to do with how to make effective roughs. Jim said that's almost nudity. Whew, just flesh tones. it's further than nudity, my dude. I am a little bummed that we were gonna have Jim Lujan actually come to my campus to do a talk, and I was really excited about it. And we had it all set for November. Jim was down; he was gonna graciously do it, and like something happened at the theater, so that they have to close it for like safety reasons for the next like month. And I was like, son of a. So that was kind of a bummer. But anyhow, we'll still have to have Jim back at some point. but I was a little bummed about that. Pepsi said, no. I know. I thought it would have been really cool because I think the kids would have really dug it. So next time. Pepsi said it sounds like a curse. It is a curse. What else has been going on? There's an upcoming election. Everybody's everything on my feeds are just like election. And I already voted, so I don't I don't know. I get mail-in votes. I've done that for the last like 20 years or something. Almost 20 years. It's scary that I'm that old. So it's a little weird to be getting the like, hey, vote for this person stuff in the mail, because I'm like, you can't, like, I can't. It's too late, dude. The vote's already been cast. Sorry. I don't need your junk mail. But I have to say, even as a person who follows politics and stuff like that, it is such an exhausting slog getting to that thing. So there's that's been happening. There's drama with our fish. Jim said Joe Rogan said Republican was the new punk rock, and he said, but we all know Nickelback is the real punk rock. I'd say Republicans are as punk rock as Nickelback. I'll give you that. What else? What else has been going on? So what I'm doing right now is just kind of basically selecting a bunch of flat colors to go underneath. The style that this book is in is a really different style for me, which at this point isn't really all that different because at this point I've done 120 of these pages. But for the first 50 or so, it took me a while to kind of get the flow of this particular method where it's just flat color. And then over the flat color, you have kind of renders in just black, almost like pencil rendering. Then over that, you have line, but the line is pencil lines. And it gets this really cool effect when it prints because it almost looks like a tint, like a Victorian tinted photograph. Pepsi said it should be simple. Candidates list their policies, people votes, not millions, billions needed for candidates on a rock tour. Can't understand it. Well, I think it's like the inevitable progress of. I think that politics are just a natural outgrowth of people running giant popularity contests. You know? So if you think about it, it's like let's start with just like a group of 5 hypothetical people, right? You got 5 hypothetical people, and they're gonna plan a vacation. It's 5 people, right? 5 people need to plan a vacation. And there are 2 people who want to lead the planning the vacation. So they finally decide, you know what? Let's democratically elect the person who's going to run the vacation, right? And so you have everybody vote. The 2 people who want to lead vote for themselves. And that leaves you with 3 people. And they're about to vote on it, right? But then like one of the 5 people kind of meets with one of their friends separately and is like, hey, you know, I hear so-and-so is kind of a jerk, like when they run things. So maybe don't put them in charge of the vacation. And then you kind of walk into another room and the other guy comes up to you and is like, hey, you know, like, do you care about our vacation? Do you care about families on our vacation, about children, about the safety of those children? Then you need to let me plan the vacation because I'm much more good at planning vacations. And the next thing you know, what people are doing is like basically spreading political propaganda, right? And then the more people you add to this equation, like the more it becomes like, well, now I need commercials that do what I'm doing, right? Now I need like grand speeches and stuff like that. Now I need to not even talk about my policies because policies they bore people. So instead I'm going to talk in like taglines and get people really angry about something. And then it's like an outgrowth from that. So it really is like, it's just like the bigger the prom, Pepsi was saying true advanced prom king and queen. It is. It's like the bigger the prom, the harder it is to have a clean fight. You know, there is no clean political fight. There are ones that are worse than others, you know, but there's definitely no. I don't know if I've ever seen like a clean cut political process, even on a small scale, even on a local level, right? You're always going to run across gossip, slander, he said, she said, people who aren't going to say what they mean, you know, and the bigger the scale, I think the more you're going to come across that kind of thing. So that's just my take on it. I don't know. But I still think it's kind of lame that corporations are considered free speech. I think that's kind of silly. That starts pouring tons of money into political campaigns, and so it becomes, you know, billionaires versus billionaires using political candidates as proxies. That's kind of annoying. But then again, it kind of makes sense because it's like, dude, you need money to reach people, you know? If you think about it, even with comics, right? In comics, it's like part of why the big companies retain their bigness is they put in a lot of money on advertising, and then that advertising translates to sales. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is other than make cool stuff. And then it becomes a fun thing that kind of keeps your mind occupied. Man, my throat is dry. I think it's because I was literally screaming for joy when when LA won. It was a very fun game. Okay. 2 panels to go. That's all I've got left tonight on my dock of comic responsibilities. How are you guys doing? How are your creative projects going? I wonder, I don't know, Jim, if you're still watching. I'm curious, what's on the cooker right now? Are you mostly focusing on full fungus final edits and kind of getting promotions out and stuff? Submitting to festivals, all that kind of stuff? Are you hit by the weird kind of postpartum that happens when you birth a creative project? Jim said entering fest tonight. Nice. He said so far it's submitted to 5. I think it's going to rock those festivals. And if it doesn't, you got to give us the list of those festivals and we'll send them a bunch of hate mail. We'll take turns and in rotation call the festivals and be like, what are you thinking here? Word on the street is you didn't let my friend Jim in the festival. Be a shame if something happened to your projector. That kind of thing, What do you think? Jim said postpartum, yes. I hate being between projects. It's always a weird thing, too, because there is this, like, brief... I don't know. At least for me, it's like there is this, like, brief satisfaction. Like, to me right now, the point that, Jim, you're at just sounds like a fantasy world. Because I'm so knee-deep in this book. And it's like... just seems like there's no end in sight to this thing. And I'm like, ooh... I see you finishing a project and I'm like, whew, that sounds great. I'd love to be finished. But the funny thing is, I know that, yeah, once you get to that finishing point, it is a little weird because it's like, well, because there is like a comfort to having the thing that you're carving away at. It's like having a goal, like you're perpetually working towards it. And as you're working towards it, it kind of keeps you distracted and content, weirdly. But then, like, you kind of end up, yeah, in just a weird spot when you finish. Jim said, if anyone has suggestions on festivals, let me know. I would definitely talk to Mr. Kerr, Mr. Corey Kerr, because I think he has more going on with festivals. For me, that's the animation world, so like, and movie world, and I'm like, I'm just a meager little doodler here. Okay, so now I have to kind of fill in the colors for this kid. Dylan said, good evening, fellow vampires. Nice. We are Wahmpires. Has anyone done like a comic called Wahmpires and it's vampires that just cry a bunch? It's like baby vampires and they're just like, wah. If not, that is gold. And if you sell that idea, I want 50% of the profits for the Wahmpire franchise. That's it. You do it's kind of like Muppet Babies. Excuse me. It'd be kind of like Muppet Babies, like A bunch of wee little vampires. You know, and they're called Wahmpires. And they have adventures. Adventures and learning. So it's like an educational show with Wahmpires. Jim Lujan said, Wahmpire George Michael gets bit by a vampire. Oh, nice. I like that. I didn't even make the Wham connection there. I like that. Pepsi Cola said they'd make cute plushies. That's why I feel like it has to already exist, you know? That's just too obvious of a bit to not have been done. I always feel like that's a good thing to check if you come up with like what you think is like some genius marketing idea. Always check to see if it's been done. Sometimes you can still put your own spin on it and just be like, whatever. I don't care if it's been done. This is a different thing. But sometimes if it's like something like that where it's just an idea connected to a title, it may have been done. Pepsi said basically people who work overnight exhausted by said work. Wahmpires, the underpaid. Nice. Scampires. Dracula opens a telemarketing call center. I kind of love the idea of Dracula being like a scam artist on the phone. He's like, it looks like I overfunded your account. Let me get your computer access so I can fix this overfunding. You need to buy the gift cards. You will buy the Target gift cards for me. See, I think, Jim, when I'm done with this book, we need to do a side project of something completely stupid like that. Like where we'll take an idea like that and just make like shorts based on it. We can do voice acting for it too. I love the idea. Hello, it is me. I am CEO of Federal Bureau of Investigations. I need access to your computer and your social security number, please. You sound like a scammer, sir. I am not a scammer. Well, you sound kind of like a vampire. I am not a vampire. It's like a double life where he has to deny both his profession and his existence. Well, can I at least talk to you over the phone, like on a video call or something? He goes on the video call and just doesn't appear because there's mirrors in the camera. Like, I knew you were scamming me. No, I am here. I tell you, I'm right in front of you. I do a horrible vampire, but you know, whatever. All right, Wahmpires and Scampires. There could be a crossover too, you know. Maybe the Wahmpires fight the Scampires. You guys, this is what happens when you work late at night, okay? You come up with Wahmpire Scampire crossover. You know what I'll say? You come up with Fortune 500 companies. That's what we just came up with together, guys. We just came up with the next property that's going to blow the industry wide open. All right. Now I'm in like weird vampire mode. Like now I just want to talk like a vampire, even though I do a terrible Transylvanian. But it's such a fun. That's one of the things that always kind of annoyed me about like the Twilight thing and like the kind of more modern vampire stuff is like, dude, the Transylvanian thing is awesome. Like the I want to suck your blood, like that voice is part of the fun of vampires. And by getting rid of that and going kind of serious with it, yeah, I get it. You know, it's kind of interesting and but seriously, like, isn't it so much more fun when it's like, hello? With like the big, I've got my eyes very largely open and I am slowly walking towards you. Dylan said, woo, I started the vampire talk of the night. I love it. Pepsi Cola said it is the perfect season for accents. I think of the accents, I think the umlaut is very seasonal right now. The umlaut. I'm here all night, folks. Well, actually, just till I finish this page. But you're stuck with me. Yeah, so anyhow, I just always find it interesting. What did that say? Toe Mater saying, I want to siphon your gas. Oh, that's right. My son was like obsessed with cars when he was little. And we used to watch, there was like a Cars short where Mater became like a vampire, from what I remember. That was a great little series. Yeah, I kind of fell in love with that series because of my kid. Because it's like when you see a kid's eyes looking at cars, it makes you really appreciate that franchise. Where are we at? We're at the 30-minute mark. But as you can hear, I've been having a scratchy throat, so I'm going to get some water. I will play one little trailer, and then we're probably going to finish up the last two panels here. But we'll get there. Here is... Let's play, an oldie but goodie. We haven't played Frank's Adventures at the Library in a long time, guys. It's overdue. So here's Frank's Adventures at the Library. I'll be back after this with hopefully a less scratchy throat, and we'll finish up this comic coloring.
Our heroic adventurers fought orcs, monsters, sorcerers, necromancers. Now they find themselves in front of a mystical library. What shall they find? It's all in the roll of the dice.
We've come this far. There's great power behind this door. I can feel it. We just have to get past it. This door is no match for my axe. I shall chop it down. You always want to use brute strength. Why don't you try knocking? We'll try it your way. You may enter. The library is open to all those who seek knowledge. Feel free to look through our tomes. Maybe you'll find the answers you seek. I sense great power here, and it's behind those shelves. Indeed, there are powerful items hidden behind these shelves, but you can only get there through the enchanted words. Do you have those words? I believe I do.
Tremble before the Cremble.
There is great power. Look at that glove. Must be so powerful. That is not where I sense this power. I must get closer. I found them. I found these sacred manuscripts written by Joshua Kemble. Behold, I now possess 2 stories and Jacob's apartment. Please tell us more about 2 stories. and Jacob's apartment. And who is Joshua Kemble?
Xeric Award-winning cartoonist Joshua Kemble is a freelance artist, graphic designer, and author. Two Stories is a confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. Jacob's Apartment is a coming-of-age graphic novel in the vein of Ghost Road and Fun Home. It weaves together the threads of spiritual faith, identity, purpose, love, and loss to create an engrossing world in which waking and sleeping dreams collide.
You have made your choice. The passage is now closed. Wait, can I get that glove? No. Oh. All right, let's go.
So I forgot how long that is, but it's so good. Dylan said, "What's your favorite blood type to feast upon?" Well, I would probably have to say I don't actually know anything about blood types. I wouldn't know what you're talking about. I am CEO of organization trying to fix computer. I am not a vampire scammer. I am not a scampire. I don't know where your paranoia is taking you. The Scampire thing is hilarious. Oh my goodness. That's gonna be my favorite thing for the whole night is the Scampire thing. So right now I'm kind of doing selections of this rock. I am hoping that, let's see. What was I gonna? I guess my gist was. Pepsi said he's just a salesman, Dylan, not legit night shift only salesman. Exactly. Now let me help with your computer. Give me full access. Oops, I gave you too large of refund. You must refund it to me. Buy cards from the Walmart. Okay. Dylan said, I feel like the Scampire would enjoy gaslighting 100%. 100%. All right. So here we go. We're going to deselect all the white areas on this. Pepsi said he actually just wants to be a top salesman. Yeah, that's the thing. He's not even a scammer. He's literally just working for like I worked in phone sales when I was younger, actually. One summer when I was working on my BFA, I got a job at Starwood Hotel's call center. And so Starwood at the time, I don't even know if this hotel chain exists anymore. But they used to own like the Westin, the Sheraton, the W Hotel, the St. Regis, and some other like big hotel chains and stuff. And so it was like this weird job where it would be like, actually it was a pretty chill job. You would just work really late nights. It was like graveyard shifts for sure. I mean, the call center was open like 24 hours a day, but my shifts were always like, would start at like midnight and end at like 8 in the morning. And you'd just take these calls like from people who thought that you were at the hotel. A lot of your job was just taking furious calls where it's like, I'm in the lobby. Why isn't my reservation here? Like my whole family's here. Like just come out and work this out. And I'd be like, I'm in California. And they're like, why am I getting somebody in California? So anyhow, although you weren't supposed to say your location, but you could say you're not on the premises only if they asked. They'd rather kind of keep the person thinking you were actually at whatever location unless they asked, are you actually at the location? There were like strict rules about it. So anyhow, it was interesting. It was an interesting thing. I don't know who Jimmy Rizzo is. He said, "Hi, this is all one-sided. They talk down to you. Listen, he would ban me soon." Okay. Thank you, Jimmy. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, bud. But good luck, my dude. So anyhow, what was it? Oh yeah, so I would work these like call centers, and it was always like really yeah. Pepsi said it. Was that a Wahmpire PR person? That's true. It did sound like that. Don't listen to the Wahmpires. They're gonna destroy you. Anyhow, so that call center job was so chill though. Like, so most of the time it would be people calling and they wanted to make a reservation. You'd get them a really cool deal, and then you get them booked at a hotel or whatever. And it was actually pretty fun because you'd be talking to people who were like planning these crazy cool vacations, and you'd meet like weird people, like celebrities would be on the phone. You'd be like, this voice sounds really familiar. And then, occasionally it'd be like a really crappy celebrity who'd do the like, do you know who I am? And it's like, how would I know who you are? All I hear is a voice over the phone. Like, you had a mute button. So if somebody was being really rude to you over the phone, you could just mute it and talk crap about them to your coworkers. And then like the other thing that was nice about it was, for being early in college, it was nice because I could do a lot of reading and homework between calls, because you're just kind of sitting around like taking calls. So anyhow, it was a pretty chill job. And then you'd get like sales commissions, like if you upsold people to a heavenly bed that was like more thread count, so it cost them more money or something like that. It's a pretty chill job. Anyhow, it was an interesting job. I've had a lot of weird, odd jobs throughout the years, especially before I got a degree. Um, I always think it's strange when people haven't had a lot of experience working outside of whatever field they're in. Not that it makes you better or worse or anything like that, but I guess coming from kind of a more kind of blue collar background, it's not like I could just go straight into college and have like mom and dad like fund me, you know? And so that meant, from the age of pretty much like 17 on, I was like working close to full time, if not full time, at a bunch of odd jobs here and there. I worked at a movie theater, worked at a gas station. Dylan said, do you remember some celebrities that you helped, and can you tell us who? I'll give Scampire a 5-star rating on Scamability. So I did find, I don't remember her name, but there was this woman who had a really familiar voice, and then she had done the voiceover for, I think, The Godfather. I think it was The Godfather 2 or 3. I can't remember. But her voice was like the narration voiceover voice from The Godfather. And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. She was like some old, I think, British actress or something. But yeah, it was an interesting job. I only worked there for maybe a year, but it was pretty chill. Yeah, I had a lot of weird jobs, weird odds and ends jobs. But I think that honestly, I think it's nice to have that kind of variety of background for your work, because it helps you appreciate the things you have, the jobs you do end up working in the future. And it does give you a nice through line. Like, it's like, to me, in my life, if I hit like hardships or anything like that, I can always go like, well, at least I'm not working graveyard shifts at AM PM, and if I have to, I've done it before. So it's like, I don't know. I do feel like sometimes people get really dramatic, especially people who've only worked in like office environments or something like that. They will view things as much more catastrophic than they are. You know, where it's like, hey, I used to have a job where like people would, do heroin in the bathroom, like customers, and then you'd have to clean up that restroom with like a hazmat suit, and throw away the needles they left. That was working at a graveyard shift at an AM PM. Um, where people would write messages with their own feces on the wall and stuff. It's like that was one of the worst jobs I've ever worked in my life. So, if I have like a bad job or a bad experience at work, I can always be like, yeah, but there was that job. Like, yeah, Pepsi said varying experiences are generally a plus. I think they are. And I think that, that job got me really good at talking to all kinds of people. Like, because you couldn't be like a person who couldn't talk to people and work at a place like that. Cause people would come in at like 1 a.m. and want to talk or whatever. And, your job is to like do customer service there. So it's actually pretty chill. And I enjoyed that part of it. This is something I've always had in my personality. I think that's why I like doing live streams. I always like talking to people. I always like hearing people's stories. And I always like meeting interesting characters, like people who are different than me, or like people who have interesting backstories. I used to take public transit a lot when I was younger too, because again, I was pretty poor, so I didn't have the money to buy like a car or anything like that. And one of the things I miss even to this day about using the bus system was the kind of amazing, weird, random people you would meet all the time. You'd meet just like random, interesting people with crazy stories and, different aspirations. And like one day you'd talk to somebody who's like a firefighter. And then the next you'd talk to somebody who, is, a journalist. And then the next day you'd talk to like a retired grandma. The next day you'd talk to some guy who's like literally, in 10 gangs. Like, well, not literally, but in a lot of gangs and doing some nefarious stuff, but like you'd meet all these like weird, disparate, different kind of people. And I really enjoyed those conversations. It's been a weird part of my personality probably since I was a kid. I think my mom had told me once that when I was like really little, and I've seen this with my son too, when I was really little, if we were like standing in the line at Disneyland, I would be the weird kid who like starts making conversations with the other people in the line. Sometimes to my detriment, right? Sometimes it can be like the annoying guy on the airplane who's like, so where are you heading? And it's like, that's not always the best personality, but that's always been one of my personalities is like, I'm always really curious about people's stories. Dylan said, am I the only one who thought those two were victims of Medusa before being colored in? Yeah, I mean, it could have some Medusa-ness. But I think it's working pretty well. Let's see here. What else? We got some white going on here. Okay. So we're probably going to be streaming for about, 10 or 15 more minutes till I finish this panel. If you haven't yet, you definitely want to hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed. Dylan said, so you're one of my nightmare people, an extrovert person willing to talk. Well, that's the bizarre thing too, because I I have that duality where I really enjoy meeting people. I really enjoy conversations and stuff like that. But I also get really panicked in large crowds. So like a bus kind of works because it's a little bit less people. But if we're talking like a comic convention, suddenly I get very don't like crowds. Yeah, and then it's weird because it's like there's some situations where I really like social interaction, and there's definitely some where some like commonplace social environments where I do terribly. Like a good example is like I'm really terrible at small talk. Which is a weird thing. It's like I never quite know. You know the people who do like the how's your weather? I guess now that I'm watching baseball, maybe there's something that could help with small talk, because that's usually what a lot of people small talk about is like sports. But I'm always like the person who like awkwardly, like I never have any idea of like what the hell to say in those scenarios. Because I always want to get into kind of wackier conversations. Which is why I really like when we did the Crestline art meetup with Jim and the Making Comics guys and Gary and all of them. One of the things I really liked about them is they kind of cut to the chase and have conversations that are a little more fun. They'll goof around and have like, I don't know, deeper conversations. So like to me, I'm much more comfortable in that kind of scenario than one where you're like at the water cooler, and people are like, so that weather lately, huh? And you're like, I don't even know. And like, I'm really bad at that kind of conversation. I feel like when I have that kind of conversation, I always am on the verge of offending someone or saying something wrong or not saying something. Like, I don't know. It's very tense to me. That might be the kind of more aspy side of my personality too, like the more autistic part of me. Is just like I can't do that kind of thing at all. So it is funny because it's like, yeah, I really like hearing people's stories and stuff like that, but there's definite scenarios where I'm like, I really don't know how to conduct myself. Pepsi said, gotta love anxiety. Yeah, 100%. But yes, I can be extroverted for sure. And I think I am really interested in other people's stories. So that's a big part. Dylan said, I have to build up confidence to give a person a compliment. You expect me to strike up a whole conversation? Yeah. And I always find like compliments are always weird to give and receive, right? Because like I like to give people credit for the things they do, but it also feels kind of bad like you're dropping a bomb on them that now they have to deal with. Where it's like I don't want to put them in an awkward position where they're like, oh, now I don't know what to say because you said something really nice. And then they're in a weird position because they're like, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to like accept the compliment because it's mature to accept a compliment, or whether I should like, be like, no, like I'm totally not, everybody like, basically play it down so that it's more humble. Because I definitely, anytime somebody compliments me, it's like very awesome, but I also don't believe them, even if it's sincere. So my inclination is to be like, no, like this, if somebody's like, oh, your comic rocked, my inclination, my gut is like to say, well, you only think that because you've read 2 comics. Like read 3 comics and you'll be like, that comic sucks. I want to basically make an excuse for like why their compliment is not correct. But then I realized, like, well, that's awkward for the person complimenting. And so nowadays I try to just kind of accept a compliment and be like, thank you, you know? But I always feel weird giving and accepting compliments because, again, it's one of those things where it's like the branches of possibilities of like how it'll be taken can just diverge so much. If you can't tell from my inherent rambling here, you know, yeah. I'm still kind of curious about Jimmy Rizzo in the chats. There's a guy named Jimmy Rizzo, and he's like, these guys are only one-sided. Got really mad, and I don't quite understand, but I think they just kind of flamed out. Maybe it was a bot. I don't know. But it was very funny and interesting. And the name Rizzo is pretty awesome. Dylan said, you would not imagine how many times I mess up saying have a nice day or anything else to the DoorDash driver. Dude, DoorDash is the best, though. Here's the thing that's great about being a person like me. I'm a person who I enjoy being social, but it takes a ton out of me to do it. And so I can do it in spurts, you know? Like I can be real extroverted in very short spurts. But most of the time, my favorite thing to be doing is what I'm doing right now is just be at home, working on creative projects, in my little bubble, you know, work, never leave the house. Like that's where my soul lies. And one of the cool things about modern times is you really don't have to leave the house that much. You can DoorDash your food, you know, you can DoorDash your groceries. You can order most things you need offline. So in theory, you really don't need to leave the house that much. And we don't. Like my wife and I don't go on long trips a lot. We don't really get out of the house a lot. I like that. I actually don't like, I'm not like a travel-y, go outside kind of person. Every once in a while, you know, it's probably good to do, but it's like, yeah, I'm a homebody. So I love the fact that we live in an age where you actually don't have to leave the house as often. Dylan said, I'm surprised that I haven't said you too when the Dasher says enjoy your meal that often. Okay, so I have definitely experienced that. When I used to work concessions at the movie theater, the place, so concessions is like they're the people who make the popcorn and like basically serve your food and stuff. So if you go to get popcorn at a movie theater, if you go to see a movie, that spot is basically where I used to work concessions. It's something, basically for Cinemark. And that's the movie theater chain that was around here that I used to work at. So where my concession stand was, right behind the people in line, was a blinking restroom sign. So if you were standing in line, like right behind you, there was a restroom sign that's blinking with an arrow pointing down, like right above your head. So people would come up and they have this blinking restroom sign right behind them in the hallway. And they'd be like, where are the restrooms? And you'd look at them and there's a restroom sign just blinking on and off, like right above their head. But anyhow, another thing about that was 9 out of 10 people, you'd be like, well, enjoy your movie. And they'd be like, you too, and head off. It's not that it makes me feel less bad because that happened. I'd say, yeah, like 9 out of 10 people. So I figure, hey, if 9 out of 10 did that, then 9 out of 10 are probably still doing it. So if I make that mistake, say at a restaurant or something where they're like, hey, enjoy your meal, and you're like, you too. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen most of those people go to the movies and do the same thing to the concession stand, So it makes me feel a little less bad if I slip up like that, because I'm like, yeah, everybody does, That one was particularly funny though, because it's like, yeah, I'll enjoy my movie out here. I will say, if you're ever like in high school or anything like that, or like a younger folk looking for just like a job, like a side gig kind of thing to make some extra money, working at a movie theater was super fun. For one thing, pretty much everyone who works at a movie theater, at least back then, you'd basically get to see free movies all the time, which was cool. So you had to go to the theater for free. You'd have friends who worked in the projection booth, so you'd be able to kind of chill up in the projection booth and hang out with people. And honestly, it wasn't like that hard of a job. So yeah, that was a fun one for like the side gigs. Dylan said, I say have a good day when it's clearly dark out, but I've noticed dashers do that more often than me. Well, it's kind of one of those things too where yeah, I think that's where I get my wires crossed sometimes. There's sometimes where somebody asks you, how are you doing? And, you know, social graces are like, people don't actually want to know how you're doing. You know, like they say, hey, how's it going? And you go, it's been good. Or you can say, it's been a rough patch, but I'm good. You know, but you can never be like, oh man, let me tell you how I'm doing and like actually get into it. When you're having those like little, you know, tit for tat, how about the weather? How about the Dodgers kind of conversations, right? Okay. That is funny though. Pepsi said eventually they eat. They're just being preemptive and psychic. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. If you tell somebody enjoy their meal and they're not eating right now, maybe you're just telling them, hey, when you do eat, you know, in the future, you know, have you ever wondered why like some statements didn't become like politeness? Like, you know, if somebody's like, I wish you good digestion, you know, like, and honestly, that makes a little more sense than like some of the weird things we have in our culture. Like, I always find it strange that when you sneeze, you know, people are supposed to say bless you. I find that absurd. Like, why would you bless someone for sneezing? That just doesn't make any sense. And then you look into like the origins of it, and I think it's because they used to think it was like demons coming out of the person. You know, like because sickness was caused by like demons and bad blood or something. Like, but it's just a weird thing to say, you know? Like, that's a weird thing to tell someone, you know? And I know it's like the polite, kind of considerate thing to say, but even now that I've learned, you know, you do say bless you if somebody sneezes, but it's always really hard for me to say because it just sounds so like weird. It's weird to bless someone when in any other context, you know, in life, are you just randomly walking around blessing people? Like, there's quite a few things about that. Like, blessing someone, doesn't that like indicate that you have some sort of blessings to give? Like, am I, you know, a priest? Am I some sort of holy ordained being that's able to bless people? Like, I don't know. It's just a really weird, it's a weird thing. Dylan said, I feel a little offended when somebody doesn't bless me. Yeah, I get it. My wife actually had to kind of teach me that one because I'm one of those people who, like, for a while, I actually was like, I just think that's stupid to say, so I'm never going to say that to someone. And then my wife kind of pointed out that it does come across as like kind of offensive if you don't say it, which is weird. But, you know, I'm not that socially clueless. So now I do follow the pack and say bless you. But I will say, in the back of my head, I still am going through that, like, but why? but why are we blessing people for sneezing? It's a very strange thing. I mean, just think of like the bizarreness of that. It's like if somebody yeah, it's just like any other sort of bodily emission where you just kind of go, well, saints be with you, or you know what I mean? It's just like a really weird, I don't know. To me, it's a weird thing. It's just a strange thing if you think about it, you know. Fun fact, Dylan said, that I learned when I was taking class on storm weather magic and folklore. People used to believe that the winds were actual demons. Oh yeah, people used to believe a lot of things. You know? Okay, here we go. Look at this. Look at this. We're almost there. You guys, I've been having so much fun talking here. Oh, well, we're not quite done, but I've been having fun talking to you guys. I'm going to find this. Dylan was saying those were wild times. Well, depending on how our next vote goes, we might be back to some of those wild times. There is a certain chunk of the country that believes in some pretty ancient folklore type stuff, like that the weather can be controlled and some really weird things that might actually get political power again. So who knows? Who knows how soon we'll be back to thinking that the wind is demons? Let's see here. Dylan said she's a beaut, Josh. Thank you. Thank you. I'm feeling good about this page. It's going to be a lot better when I do my color hold. But yeah, I do think people forget. I think humans forget like how freaking gullible we are. How prone to like superstition, you know, where we do have a part of us that, you know, as a society, you'll be like okay with being like, you know what? These people getting sick, it's because of witches. And then it's like, let's go kill a bunch of people like and call them witches, and that'll solve the problem. That's like in human nature in crowds, right? And I think we forget as we get more civilized or like get more scientific knowledge that that element still exists in us, like that weird primitive like crowd think where it's just throws rationality out the window and it's like me club with stick to solve problem, you know. And I don't know, that might come back. So okay, that is it. We finished the page, guys. Thanks for everybody who came and hung out with me for the hour that I streamed. Let me know in the comments or in the chats whether you like these like kind of shorter streams, because I can do these a lot more frequently than like the long crazy binge streams I used to do. If you do like them, I'll try to keep them more consistent. That's another page down, and so the next time I see you guys, hopefully we'll be carving away at page 121 and celebrating the Dodger victory, because the Dodgers are going to mow over the Yankees in the next game and win the World Series. And yeah, and I hope oh, nice. Pepsi said, fun pop-up stream if you want to. They work. Cool. So I'm planning on doing more pop-up streams. And because of that, if you're not subscribed, you want to hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when we're about to go live. And as usual, I appreciate you guys. You could be anywhere tonight for this last hour, and you chose to be here with me and hang out. And that's noted and very cool. So I appreciate you guys. I hope your creative projects are going well, and I will see you on the next live stream. Goodbye.